This was a new idea back then. I thought I could be a part-time FD. Didn't want to go back into corporate life because I couldn't see how I would be able to build a career and also be mum.
The biggest thing's finding work.
I think it's something that you can't sort of intuit your way into.
How'd you get into it?
I would say...
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. If you're in a leadership role or striving to get there, you know the rules of the game are changing faster than ever. So our guest today is Sara Daw, and she argues that the very top of the corporate ladder, the C-suite or the board, is built on a model from the 1980s, and it's simply not fit for the challenges and opportunities of today. So in this conversation, we're going to dive into those traditional structures, why they're holding companies back, and crucially, what does it mean for you as a leader? We're going to explore the expectations of talented individuals like you who are reshaping what effective leadership looks like and how power and decision-making needs to shift for organizations to become truly agile. Fascinating topic. Many people have been asking me this over the last year or so. So it's really nice to dive into this. Get ready to think critically about what the future of leadership looks like. And also to start to understand what boards are looking for from the next generation of leaders. If you are there now, if you want to get there next, it's been changing at a rapid pace. And so we're going to give some insights from our perspective in exec search on what companies are looking for today. Hope you find it useful and enjoy. Sara, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Pleasure. So why don't you introduce yourself, maybe kind of a couple of minutes, who you are, what you do, just to give some context, and then interested to discuss C-suite, boards, leadership, how all of that is changing from your perspective as well. So.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you. So I'm the group CEO of the CFO Centre Group and the Liberti Group. So it's an organisation, it's a global organisation, and that's actually almost 25 years old now, next year. And we provide, thanks. It seems a short time and a long time.
I'm a bit behind you. I'm 15 years.
Are you? Oh, okay, you'll soon be there. And we provide fractional C-suite services, predominantly to growing entrepreneurial owner-managed businesses. So those businesses that don't need and can't afford a full-time C-suite, but recognise they need the skill sets. And our largest business that we work with is a fractional CFO business called the CFO Centre.
Okay.
And I guess I came into it back in the early 2000s. So my journey in was around wanting a different way of living and working. So I was a CA with an MBA and didn't want to go back into corporate life because I couldn't see how I would be able to build a career and also be mum, because I was starting to have a family, and it was that different change that brought me to this way of working.
Yeah, nice. So you had a prior career in finance, essentially. Yeah, started to think about having a family and started to think about how you can integrate both all of your different parts of your life. Did you work as a fractional CFO before you started recruiting fractional CFOs?
No.
You went trained.
Yes. So it was thinking, how can I possibly have this career and also bring up children? Because back then it wasn't really accepted in corporate, and to have a family. I mean, we didn't really talk about our personal lives, and so I just couldn't see how I could be full on and also look after young children and be at home and properly present for them. So I thought I could do, this was a new idea back then, I thought I could be a part-time FD. So now we're called fractional CFOs, and back then we were called part-time FDs. It's the same thing, but it was a brand new concept, and I thought I could work locally. So that was a key point, you know, not having to commute, work locally for SMEs who needed our skills, a day a week for this business, a day a week for that. And I could work a couple of days a week and look after my family a couple of days a week.
Yeah, lovely. And that worked.
Oh, absolutely. And I actually looked around for someone else that was doing the same thing. And that's when I bumped into Colin Mills, and he'd set up the FD Centre, which is what this business was originally called, a few years earlier. And he was building his portfolio. So he had the same drivers. He was a corporate CFO wanting freedom from corporate life. He was disillusioned with corporate life. He had big roles in big corporates, and he was busy building his portfolio. And we met up, and I decided to join up, and you know, from there we built the UK business and then globally, because more and more people gravitated to this way of living and working.
Yeah, that's interesting. Let's explore that a little bit more, because I also speak with many people that want to better organize their life, so to speak. And whether it's, I mean, there's so many different words for it, right? Some people call it fractional work, some people call it building a portfolio career. It used to be called interim. I mean, it doesn't matter particularly, right? But there are many people that want to do multiple roles or something for a period of time, and then step into something else. Have you seen, like, how have you seen expectations change over the years, both from the individuals but also from companies? And I know you mentioned most of the you mentioned SMEs, and I think, is that the space that you're seeing this happen in most, or have you seen any large corporates also start to think about fractional C-suite
Yes,
leaders, board
so
members?
that's a really good question. So when we set the business up and started out, we realized there was this obvious gap where SMEs could not afford a full-time C-suite. So they absolutely, and actually they didn't need it, and they couldn't afford it, and they didn't want it. But actually they still needed the skills some of the time. So the part-time model, the fractional model, worked brilliantly. And the way we describe our businesses is portfolio. So you build a portfolio, and we use the words fractional and part-time. Yet our relationships with our businesses that we work with are ongoing. So we will be their CFO or their CMO, but it will be a day a week or 2 days a month. But it is an ongoing relationship. And the C-suite professional would then have a portfolio, and they could work, you know, actually as much as they wanted. They might work 5 days a week and more, but have the flexibility, because they're in control of their schedule, to manage their time. Or alternatively, they might work 3 days a week, 2 days a week, and balance it with something else, like I did to start with. Certainly
Right.
being full-time for a long time now, building the business, but that's my choice. But going back to
Yes.
your point
Yeah.
about whether it's larger organizations can also take benefit of this, and absolutely. So that's another area where we work now, where what we're seeing is group CFOs, group CMOs, you know, heads in large organizations have never-ending to-do lists. You know, the global change that we're all subject to at the moment, the necessity to be always on, to be on top of everything technologically, and you know, to be on top of everything in the team. The fact that we have wider remits, you know, the CFO remit has really expanded, I think. And quite frankly, I think corporates are expecting us to be a bit superhuman, to expect all of that in one individual. So what I'm seeing is our offering here, and others are doing it, I think, as well, is another one of me. So take on a fractional or different fractionals at times to cover off all those capacity and skill sets gaps that you've got, that where you don't need to oversee someone else or train them up. You know the job's going to get done because those people used to sit in your seat, but they're non-threatening because they don't want your job anymore.
So you
And
think
they'll
then,
make
so
you look
just
good.
from, yeah, just putting on that thread, so it sounds like the demand is coming from CFOs or whoever it might be, CMOs, that don't feel that they have the bandwidth or skills to be able to fulfill their role.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And so
But
they're looking for.
they're
Oh, yeah, yeah,
confident
yeah.
people who
We
really,
can dive into that.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
but so your option is, so you can go and hire McKinsey, you can go and hire a fractional. So these are folks that are in a big board role, and because of all the different mega trends and change and all of the craziness that's going on in the world and the pace of it, you feel that more and more incumbents need additional help. Is that the kind of the driver?
Yes. Yes, and there's a driver from the business point of view as well. Because if you think about it, putting everything on a key individual to head up a function and expect organizational agility is quite a big ask. So if a C-suite leader has on tap functional specialists that they can use fractionally and with a variable cost and a variable time commitment, pay as you go, they can pivot and move really quickly. So it's not just for, and also you're never going to have a CFO or a CMO or a CTO who's good at everything and knows all the specialist functions. The difference with bringing in compared to a McKinsey is we're implementers. So we will actually get the job done and deliver on the function and the functional requirement. Whereas McKinsey is more of world-class diagnostics and consulting specialists. So it's a different. They would be in a different camp, I think, to this.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. And so, how are you finding then that? So this is quite a mindset shift for incumbents. So you're a CFO, and you've always had folks that are interim, like project-based work and stuff. So maybe this is just actually an evolution of something that's already been
Yes.
here. I mean, I know it's been rebranded to fractional, which is interesting. And again, fractional tends to indicate something more senior. So typically a leadership role versus interim, which could be at any level of an organization. So I get the branding and I get the point of it. How do you think incumbent leaders need to just adjust their mindset to take these people
Yes,
in,
I
or
think
to take these people on, and to
that's a
want
really good.
to?
Yeah, I think that's that's an interesting point. So what I'm seeing is, there's a natural tendency, isn't there, that we don't want to admit that we can't do it all. I think as individuals, as humans, we want to be, on the front foot and to show that we can always deliver. So what I found is it's very confident C-suite professionals who are absolutely able to see that it's impossible to get everything done in the timescales that they want. And when that's the case, it makes total sense to bring in extra support and have that team of leaders that can support them. And it means that they get to do the bits of the roles that only they should and could be doing, and probably that they enjoy the most. So it's also brings, there's some real benefit here because it enables them to go towards their swim lane and stay in the areas that they really love doing. So I think it's really confident people. And also what I'm finding is, an example very recently that we had was due to various tax changes last year. An organization wanted to expedite a number of acquisitions, and there was absolutely no way that the CFO that was incumbent was going to get through everything. So they could use fractional to come in and help get through the volume of work. Now, the beauty of fractional versus interim, I think, is that there can be a continuity piece here with fractional. So
Right.
interim individuals would tend to come and then they're on to their next full-time project somewhere else. Whereas fractional is generally fractional part-time. So you can have, the number of an amount of time you need. And often you can engage with the same individuals around the same areas on an ongoing basis, so that you get the continuity of knowledge about your organization and it's not lost. And the beauty of working with firms of fractionals is that can always then happen because the firm can take the continuity and make sure the next team, if it's different, or next people, if they're different, can continue with knowledge. So I think there's a, there's a new breed of organization popping up. These firms are fractionals, which I think is quite interesting. They're organizers, not employers.
Okay, interesting. And that's how you think of yourselves, a community
Yes.
of folks versus a
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, where we support fractional C-suite professionals and businesses to work together. We're a community. Because the other great beauty of being in a community is when you're a C-suite individual, what I've noticed is when you go into corporate, your networks tend to narrow. And you tend to get very specialist and focused on your industry or your, even as much as just your organization, quite inward focusing. And the beauty of being part of a fractional organization is you're in a community and you can access all the minds and networks and best practice and knowledge of hundreds of other people. You've always got backup and support.
Yeah, it's nice to build a community, definitely. But you do, I mean,
Yeah.
what as you go through your career, I would just say to people, make sure you're really good at networking and staying in touch with folks.
Totally.
There's no reason why your network and your visibility should narrow the further up you go. Because nowadays with LinkedIn and all these different things, you can do a really good job at staying connected and staying active and staying visible and stuff. So definitely worth doing that. I think just going up a level or two. I think for me as a leader, whichever size organization you want to have access to the best available talent. And I think the point of this larger trend of people wanting to do, again, it's like, gig economy stuff, right? Where people want to do multiple gigs and they like doing different things and working with different companies and so forth. There is a trend growing and more people are opting to choose that life. I think for me as a leader, you want to find the best available people, wherever they may be in the world, on whatever basis they might want to work. And, whether it's like someone who wants to do 5 days a week in your office, or whether it's someone that can do 1 or 2 days a week. I think for me, that's the best thing to do. And you're seeing a variety, like some are really open to how people work and where they want to work and stuff. Others are like coming to the office 5 days a week, So
I agree.
It's interesting.
I think that brings challenges, though, to organizations, that management of a blended workforce. So, I definitely agree with you. And I feel that the organizations of the future that have got that agility and stability, because they need both, right? I feel that the way work's going with its fractionalization of roles into perhaps activities, which is going to be done by humans and machines, I feel there's going to be layers of different types of commitments and organizations need to be okay with that. And I'm not sure they are yet. Like you could have a core of employees, a fractional base, a freelancer base, a gig economy base, and that's the whole workforce of an organization. And they're all valuable and they all do important work. But I don't see that in the world yet. I don't see them being managed as one. I think that's
it depends.
That's a step.
Yeah, no, it depends. I think it's obviously very much dependent on sector and all of those kind of things, right? I mean, I think we'll soon see AI only companies, no humans involved. But
Yes.
or maybe a little bit of a come in for a day a week. We need you to. So I think it's very dependent on the sector, and there are many that lends itself really well to people that want to do fractional work. They want to build themselves a portfolio career. I mean, obviously, if you go up one level, non-exec directors, a classic. They're doing a portfolio of work.
Yes.
So it's really interesting. I think more and more are leaning in to these kinds of things, which I think is great. Which brings me to my next partnership, because I want to speak about. It's fine. Sounds wonderful, right?
Yeah.
How do you get into it? And I think a lot of people, if they're thinking about transitioning in, what are your thoughts on like how would they go about doing it?
Yeah, I think it's something that you can't sort of intuit your way into. Feel like you need to give it a try.
Right.
So my first thoughts would be really think about it to start with, and seriously get prepared in advance. And I would talk to your network. I would talk to my network a lot beforehand and start sounding out whether you think that your network, you know, people you can trust, really believe you can make this step. And also by doing this, I think you start putting the awareness out there that you might be doing it, and you'll be surprised. There might be some businesses coming forward that would take you up on this work. So you might even start to find your first clients in this space. I think probably, if you possibly could, a way forward for people thinking about this is even try and do a little bit of it while you're still working in an existing role. So perhaps, you know, help out with another business, a small SME, or pick up a non-exec role or something like that, just to have a go and dip your toe in and look over the other side of the fence. I think that's the first thing.
It's tough because I think a lot. No, sorry, just pull on that. I think it's tough because, you know, a lot of people, they want to transition from full-time into this. The biggest thing's finding work, you know, and suddenly it's a full-time job. Maybe you pick up one. So there's this kind of selling aspect, which is why a community like yours works so well, because that gets taken care of and they can just come and deliver. So there is this transition thing is tough. But I would say with LinkedIn, you start there. It's free. It's really easy. And you can go and speak to your network, to your point, and just go, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Advice, anyone I can speak with, things like that. Then, of course, you can go and follow wonderful people like you who focus on fractional work, right? And there's lots of people that do fractional, and you can start to build your community and speak to people and ask them how they transitioned and what they did and any advice and stuff like that. And then if they're doing content, you can go like their content and comment on their content and start contributing to the conversation and stuff. And that you can just do from your home. You just need good internet for it not to go down.
Absolutely.
You know, so I think for me, that's something that one could do off the bat. And by and large, your first one is, and I think probably your first one's likely to come from someone that knows you or recommended by someone, you know.
Yes. I think the other side of it is if that piece of research and looking into it goes well and individuals decide to make the leap, I think the biggest thing is make sure you've got a financial runway. So you absolutely need to give it a year, I think.
Right.
And that may not be that you're full at the end of a year, but it may be that you get to the point where it's working and you can see that you will be.
Yeah. So what's a good first year then for someone that's like, they want to transition, they want to build this fractional portfolio career?
Yeah.
Like, what expectation wise, what should they?
I would say a good first year would be winning your first client to work with in your first 3 months, winning your next 1 or 2 in your next 3 months, and then getting to a place where you can see it's really going to work. So you may be full by the end of the year, or you are in a place where you can see how you've got your methodology of keeping work and enough time, setting enough aside time to keep your network going to win the next piece. So
I guess you have to keep a little bit of bandwidth for selling, for want of a better word.
You do. Because what I see quite often is individuals might get themselves full to say they want 4 or 5 days a week of work. They might get themselves full to 2 or 3, but get so sucked into that and they don't keep their marketing going, and then they can't get that 4th day or 3rd or 4th day. And then they end up either giving up and going back into employment, or dumbing their skills down perhaps a level, which isn't good for them, all the businesses they work with.
No. Do you see there's a danger sometimes for that first year of people discounting themselves too much to get work? Is that a danger, do you see?
Yes and no. So I think if you are going to discount to get work, and my philosophy is often don't get too hung up on that in the very early days, because once you need to give individuals the experience of this type of work, because a lot of people have never worked for fractional before, so it's a leap on their side as well. So my view is, don't get too hung up on discounting a first piece of work. I'm open to that, because you want to have the experience, and you want the business to have the experience, and then I think renegotiate, make it a finite piece of work, and then renegotiate going forwards once they've had the experience and seen the ROI on what you can deliver.
Yeah, fine. And then obviously be clear on expectations and deliverables.
Yes.
Because this is
yeah, that's a big
this
one.
is, you know,
So you really do need to ask, what does success look like for who you're working with? And do you know what? Sometimes they might not know, but you need to be having those discussions together and work it out together. And actually, the more you work it out together, the more invested you both are in working out. So I think that's it can't be a done to you model. I think the business owner or the client, it needs to be a together thing, and that really helps.
Yeah, no, definitely. I've actually hired fractional for myself for my firm, and it's a when you get it right, it's wonderful, because you can both be really clear up front. This is what we want done. This is what good looks like, and then you're just working towards this goal. And it's not about it's not about time. Maybe you've hired them for a day a week, but actually for me, it's more about output, really. Right, like it's not, unless you're hiring for a factory and they're clocking in and clocking out. But but like a lot of stuff, it's about time. It's about output, not time, for me. Especially when I run I like, much like you do. We're fully remote, and so it's really all about output. And so if you can measure what success looks like, and if you're happy with that, you're onto a really good thing. It's when expectations aren't quite agreed, then suddenly it's not aligned, and you're not quite happy, and they're a little bit. And it starts to break down.
Absolutely. That is critical. I think monitoring, service management, setting expectations, constant communication around, if you're going off track and need to course correct, we need to be talking about that. And keep the communication flowing. And but more than ever, when you start off, it's about your competency, because you don't know each other and your deliverables and your outputs. But actually, it's the relationship, I think, that holds it together for the longer term. And so actually, it's the softer skills I see that are the ones that are the harder skills. And not everyone realizes that it's the softer skills that keep the longevity of the relationships. They think it's so much about their outputs and deliverables. And actually, in the fractional space, there's always someone that can deliver what you're looking for, I find, in the most case. And therefore, that's more table stakes. The relationship is the piece, and fitting into the culture and blending in and adding value from that perspective is what's important.
Yeah, I agree. I actually agree. I mean, if you're, what's got you to, if you're doing a finance role, CFO, whatever, technically you did, but to get to CFO, a lot of it's human skills too. Technically you're good and you've got there. Suddenly then it's your human stuff. And actually, I think then transitioning to fractional work, you're absolutely right. I think you need to develop and work on your human skills, consulting skills, being consultative, being good at maintaining relationships. All of those things that are still important if you're doing a full-time role, but maybe it's just that suddenly you have clients now. Or maybe you always have internal clients. It's how you think of it, but it's definitely an important thing to do.
And it is. And a couple of other things that are important if you're thinking of moving this way is there's two other things. One is you need to be good at context shifting, because
in what way?
Multiple clients, you're constantly moving between one or another. And so you need to be comfortable with that changing landscape that you're dealing with, from within a day as well as across a week. So that sort of high pace that's associated sometimes with that needs to be something that you can embrace. And I think it's important to make sure you match what you really if you're being a fractional individual, I totally think you should be thinking big and thinking forward about what's your personal plan. What's your purpose here? What do you really want to be getting out of doing fractional work? What are the clients that you want to work with? Who are they? Where are they in their life cycle? What sector? What are the people like? How much commitment do you want with each one? You won't get there straight away with the portfolio. You won't get to your dream portfolio, well, very unlikely straight away. But if you've got that in the back of your mind, always, you can be constantly searching to get the right balance.
Yeah, love that. Thank you for that. How do they get into your community? So if there's someone watching, they want to get into fractional work, maybe they're already in it a little bit, but they could do with working, in a community like yours. What's the
Yes, I
best way
mean,
to go about it?
yes, I mean, just contact us. I mean, we're on LinkedIn. Contact me. Anyone who wants to explore a conversation about whether fractional is right for them in our community, yeah, more than happy to hear from them. Our website, cfocentre.com. Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you, Sara. Thank you so much for joining me. Really nice to meet you. And yeah,
Yes,
good to hear your
you
thoughts
too.
and views. Yeah, very
You
interesting.
too. Thanks ever so much, Lewis.
Pleasure. Lovely to meet you, and speak soon.